I'm ready.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stacey Kliesch. I'm a past president of AIA New Jersey, and here today as the chairman of the AIA New Jersey Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee, Equity and Architecture. We are delighted to have this opportunity to introduce you to this year's Architect of the Year for AIA New Jersey. The award was actually presented in 2023, but we celebrated throughout 2024. And our recipient is Nancy Dougherty, AIA. Nancy is a LEED accredited licensed architect with over 30 years of experience and a partner at Studio 1200, an award-winning architecture and interior design firm in Short Hills, New Jersey. She's built a reputation for designing beautiful and well-functioning places and spaces of diverse building types, focusing on downtown buildings that revitalize their communities. Nancy is widely respected for her design acumen, technical expertise, and finesse in shepherding projects through the land use approvals process. A passionate researcher on the history of each site, Nancy is also laser focused on the critical details of each project, resulting in unwavering confidence and trust among her clients. I was first introduced to Nancy's work when she won an award from Newark and Suburban Architects in 2010 for the Park West Tavern, one of my favorite restaurants in the village where I live, Ridgewood, New Jersey. And since then, I have kept an eye out for what is going on in Nancy's universe because I'm always very impressed with the variety of different touch points that she includes in her professional and personal practice. Nancy, thank you so much for being here today. And I turn the microphone over to you.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, Stacey. It was a wonderful introduction. I'm very proud and honored to be affiliated with the AIA and certainly to have won the award last year for Architect of the Year. So I thought since it is Women's Month that we're celebrating and also talking about equity, diversity, and inclusion, there were a few topics that I thought would be interesting today to share with the group. First, looking at a few of the community buildings that we've done in downtown locations. As Stacey said, I have always been fascinated with history. I love doing research. I think that the strength of work as architects is grounded in that research. So just show you a few of those projects quickly. The second thing is, for me and for my firm, volunteering is hugely important. You'll see, I want to talk about a few things that I've done where the overlap between architecture and sort of civic responsibility are very strong. And I've learned so much from these different volunteer activities that I've done and gotten involved in. And I think our strength as architects and our ability to have sort of both right brain and left brain thinking when we're working in a volunteer capacity has huge benefit for the larger community. And then I'm going to show you just a few projects where we've actually been working with civic and nonprofit organizations. And again, our ability to bring our expertise as architects to those organizations has, as we all know, wide-reaching benefits for nonprofits where they're really relying on us for a whole host of areas of expertise. I was thinking about some of our projects and, you know, when we've had flood conditions and really jumping in and being able to serve those nonprofits quickly. During COVID, we became part of a task force for one of the big nonprofits that we work for and sort of what that means. And then finally, a little bit about mentoring, you know, mentoring kids, mentoring students, mentoring our own staff, and how important that is, and exposing as many people as possible to what it means to be in the architecture profession. And to be involved in, you know, the AIA and its different capacities, because that really is where sort of those issues of equity and inclusion, it is a great starting point for that. So I'm going to jump in here, sort of starting with, hold on, let's get it rolling. The old technology. There we go. So first thing I wanted to just share a few images with you about our community projects. So if you look at this first image, I think it's fascinating. It's in downtown Morristown. This is on the corner of the Hart and South Street, and this is the Wells Fargo project. The buildings were originally two separate buildings. In the 1960s, they were combined into one building. And we did a project recently for the Hampshire real estate group where we had to renovate these buildings. And the reason we won this project back in the day was because we had done sort of extensive research and found out all sorts of things that I certainly didn't know, like the original train station in Morristown was on the Hart Street behind these buildings, not where we all know the train station is now, down on the other side of town. So just looking at, I'm just going to show you a few of these projects. So this first one is Advanced Realty in Bedminster. We were hired to work on their site there where they have their two existing office buildings. The original Forbes building is there. It's the smaller building that you can see in the middle of the site. And we were brought in to design 4 retail office pad sites and also a new 2-story office building for a pet food company. The interesting thing is this is in the Bedminster Historic District. And so this project was all about how do we create community? How do we be sensitive to the town of Bedminster that really is all about this sort of town and country aesthetic? And how do we marry all these different elements together? So certainly that was an interesting project for us to be working on. That one is about to go into the ground soon. The next one, as I said, sort of backtracking here a little bit, 21 South Street, this was the project where originally it was 2 buildings. In the 1960s, it was turned into 1 building, and just really appreciating what it means in the community, and then how do we take these old buildings and how do we restore and renovate them, and how do we use the history to help us as we go through the design process. We were able to keep the original historic stair in the building, which was a huge plus for the project. So it's all done now. Hampshire has their offices there, and we were able to create new retail space as well as a renovated home for Wells Fargo. Next project, just very quickly, the Milburn Movie Theater. So in downtown Milburn, our sort of historical image that got us going on this project was this in the top left. Anybody who knows Milburn, along the way, Bow Tie Cinemas took it over, and they put this pretty unattractive canopy on the front of the building. It was asymmetrical. It had columns all the way out to the curb line. So we were able to go back to really the original sort of intent of the building, which was a central canopy, and really celebrate the symmetry in the building. So it's now Charles Schwab's home. The street is now much more animated all day long now. So that was an exciting project to go through with that developer. And then finally, super quickly, the Colgate Stables. This is in Harding Township. Anyone who's from that part of the state may know this building. It was originally stables. It was converted into a single family home back in the 50s. It's a historic structure, so there were a lot of constraints on what we could do. It has been fully renovated now, and we were able to create sort of spectacular indoor space by opening up the inside of some of the old stable space, but maintaining all of the original details on the outside of the building. So that gives you a little feel and flavor, whether we're working on houses or we're working in downtown buildings. It's really about understanding the history so that we can then take that forward and create something that is creating community with our design. Now I want to sort of transition and talk about the importance of volunteering. These 4 organizations have been hugely influential for me. The Community Coalition on Race, I live in Maplewood, so South Orange and Maplewood has a coalition on race. I am the co-chair of their residential committee, and I'll talk to you in a little more detail about that because it's been so inspiring for me being involved with that group. Big Brothers Big Sisters, I have been a big sister since 2017. My little Trinity, you'll see in a little bit, I love her to death. It's been an incredible journey being connected with her and her family. For anybody who doesn't know, since we're talking about sort of women's month this month. Impact 100 Garden State is an organization that was created 10 years ago for high impact giving for women, and I've been involved since the year that it started. I think it's extraordinary what they've been able to do. They've given over $3 million out in grants for local organizations. And I've run the grant committees for that organization for several years, and really amazing work that's being done there. And then finally, Spark NJ is a relatively new nonprofit that provides funding for Black-run nonprofits and civic organizations in northern New Jersey. And I am part of that organization as well. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into the Community Coalition on Race, just because I think it's so interesting in terms of the overlap between architecture and volunteering. It also all of the issues about equity and inclusion are all wrapped up in what we've been doing with this, that I've been doing on this committee. So our committee, which is the residential committee, was tasked with creating a wealth gap equalizer loan program. I don't know anything about loans. I don't know much about finance other than running our business, but our committee was charged with putting this together. So we spent 2 years working on a loan program. So if you are a first-time home buyer in Maplewood and South Orange, we have this, what we call WAGLE, and you can get a no-interest loan of up to $7,500 paid back over 5 years that can be used for anything related to purchasing a new home. So it can be for closing costs, it can be for improvements, anything related to that. So the thing that I have found incredibly rewarding and challenging and fantastic has been to work with this group of people. It's not all women, but ironically, this photo shows all women here. So on the left and right here, you have the executive director and the program director. And a little snippet here, just for anybody who cares. This is Audrey Rowe. Her daughter happens to be SZA. So if anybody knows SZA, a world famed musician, that is SZA's mom right there. The rest of these amazing women are on our committee. There's a couple of real estate agents. My co-chair is in finance. So we spent 2 years working on how do you put together a loan program? How do you make sure that you're addressing the questions of equity properly? How are you making sure that you create a legal program? So there was a lot of legal sort of research that had to happen in order to put this program together. We have just gone through our first pilot year, and I'm proud to say that we gave out 6 grants. We're working on getting more funding, and I can't recommend highly enough. One of the things I was thinking about is, and Stacey is a prime example of this, when you get involved in these volunteer activities, you have to get really involved and go at it full force, and what you get back out of it personally is unbelievable. So that is WAGLE and the Coalition on Race. The other organization, which I mentioned before, is Impact 100 Garden State. So this was one of the years. It's organized with different committees based on different types of organizations, and there's a lot of vetting of those grant applications that happens. There's a financial review. Every grant application, the grant committee goes to visit those sites, gets to know those nonprofits, and it sort of takes a year. At the end of that year-long cycle, the grants are given out. So this year, this was a few years ago, I was on the grant committee, and we were able to give Oasis, which is in Patterson, a grant of $141,000 for one of their programs. So for any women who are out there and don't know about Impact 100 Garden State or any of the other impacts, I highly recommend it as a place of sort of giving and getting involved in volunteer activities. So that's the volunteer part of my life. I am also on the board at Greenwood Gardens, which is a historic garden in Short Hills, New Jersey. I have found that incredibly rewarding in terms of using my expertise as an architect to deal with historic structures, historic properties, and what does that mean. But now I thought it would be interesting to share just a few of the nonprofit clients we've worked with over the last many years. that we've developed really strong relationships with. And again, I feel like in terms of being able to provide, to give back to the community, what we can do as architects in terms of our skill sets, our abilities, our passions, and bringing that to nonprofits in particular, is really incredible, because we are a resource that we have just such an incredibly unique skill set that we can bring to an organization. So the first one I thought I would talk to you a little bit about is called The Door. The Door is down in Lower Manhattan. It's right at the foot of the Holland Tunnel. They provide all kinds of services for at-risk teenagers. So they have a charter school at that site. They have an adolescent health center that is totally free to adolescents, and they provide all kinds of services there. They have a drop-in center on the first floor. They have a showers. So if you're homeless, if you're a homeless teenager, you can come in there. You can get a change of clothes. You can have a shower. You can do your laundry. They have GED classes. We've done, I don't know how many projects, maybe a dozen projects for The Door. As I was thinking about this talk today, some of the things that we've done that were, came up along the way was during COVID, they asked me to be on the task force, and I spent 18 months, once a week, on a call with the internal team of The Door, figuring out how to keep this organization running and how to keep it open for these kids who desperately needed services during COVID. So it was ever changing. It was really interesting. I had to sort of stretch my thinking as an architect in order to provide benefit to them. And most of that work we did, we just volunteered that time for them. So in addition to that, we did design their adolescent health center. We designed a black box theater that also has to be their overflow seating for the cafeteria. We've done a teaching kitchen so they can teach cooking and prep skills for their kids so they can go out and get jobs. Just an endless array. We just finished an Article 31 counseling space for them. So they are extraordinary. Seeing what kind of work they do is humbling every time that I'm there and able to interact with the folks on The Door. The next piece I thought I would just share is, so this is the Greater Lawrencetown YMCA. This has actually, was amazing to us. We all know that the design does make a difference. Their membership increased over 50% once we finished this renovation for them. And the thing I remember most about this was when we first started this, the executive director had said to me, if you look at these before pictures, she said, Nancy, it's all about the brick. You got to get rid of the brick. I said, Carol, it's not about the brick. And at the end of the day, we took some of the brick out, but most of the brick around the building we left. For them, it was really about creating a much more sort of inviting and modern entrance to the building, and then getting as much light and air into the building as possible. It was also about keeping as much of the structure as possible. So it's a little hard to tell here, but many areas of the low sloped roof, we kept. All of the glulam beams inside we kept so that we could maintain the costs and we could, make it viable for them as a nonprofit. So that's that project. And then finally, the last project is Jesty House. We're in the middle of working for Jesty House. They are an organization that provides all kinds of social services for mentally and intellectually disabled adults. They have housing, they have day programs, they have mental health services. It goes on, all kinds of community-based programs. They finally, if anybody heard in the news, they got a $13 million grant from the Cooperman family to build a new facility so that they would be able to provide fully accessible housing and affordably priced housing for their clients, and in particular their aging clients. What I've learned through them is if you have intellectual disabilities, you age, the things that come with aging come more quickly, and providing housing that really addresses that is critical. So again, we've been a partner with Jesty House for I think a decade. We've done multiple projects, and what we learn from them is extraordinary. We've had the privilege of participating in work sessions with their clients. We've done multiple rounds of that, and really being able to partner with those people and collaborate on what kind of spaces and places make sense for them. So, and then, oh, the very last one is, this is in Jersey City. We did housing for homeless veterans, 21 apartment units there, with Deb Tantliff, actually from Tantum Realty. This was a labor of love. It took years to get the financing in order and to get the project off the ground. One of the most special pieces is that there was a mural that was created showing veterans, and actually, for anybody who knows the folks from Sweetwater, Ron passed away just before this project was finished, and so there is some symbolism in this mural that reflects Ron, as he was also a vet himself. So that's a little bit about projects. Most importantly then here, I wanted to also talk a little bit about what it means to mentor. At Studio 1200, we have spent a lot of time. We love mentoring on all kinds of, in different ways. So I thought I would just share a little bit of this with you, and then maybe if there's questions about any of this, I would be thrilled to answer them. So sort of starting on the top left here, these are actually kids in a school program, actually in Baltimore, because one of my kids is there. So we did a program that had to do with architecture and music, because they were learning about music and what is the built environment and how does it relate to music. There were a lot of M&Ms involved, which they loved, so that we could keep them engaged. And it was fantastic. Many of these kids really didn't know anything about architecture, so we had a great time with them. In the middle on the top here, this is my little Trinity, who she's much older now, but we were at the New York Museum together in this picture. So she's learned all kinds of things about architecture that it's certainly a thrill to go around with a young person, as we all know, because their perspective on what the built environment is totally different from ours, and extraordinarily innocent and, insightful, I would say. I think we have over the years done things for Bring Your Kid to Work Day, building things, constructing things. I know that the AIA does all kinds of activities, for kids, with kids. And it's super important, I think, for us as professionals, and also to share that knowledge so that it may spark something in a child along the way. These are a few of we had an intern day where we had students from Kane and NJIT, so they were here enjoying our space for the day. The middle image on the bottom is a program that I did with students, elementary school students, 600 of them, and it had was all about water, actually, and water, how the preciousness of water and how difficult it is to get to. This is actually a map of Africa and the different countries. And so it was a program related to that. But I have been amazed over the years, when you do these programs with kids, they really remember, and it definitely sparks something in kids, and it forces us to sort of get outside of what we do every day, and be part of that excitement with kids. And then finally on the bottom right here, site visit that we had done with our office in a local project. I'm sure anybody here who's listening today, you've all participated in that. We have to remember to keep doing that. I think all of us, we get busy and wrapped up in what we're doing, but providing opportunities, talking to people, learning, right? We learn as much. What I've learned over the years through my volunteering and working on these different kinds of projects is we learn every day, and we learn from other organizations that is incredibly important to bring back to what we do as architects. And just to finish it up, this is actually an image of which I thought everyone might enjoy. This is Greenwood Gardens. We were fortunate enough during COVID, we needed to do an outdoor retreat. So here we are during COVID, doing our office retreat outside, which was super fun and fantastic. So I did a lot of talking, Stacey. I'll let you, I'll give it back to you for a second. Maybe you have some questions for me.
Great. Two things that really stand out for me that I want to mention. One is your application of design mentorship into communities that you wouldn't necessarily think design would be the mentorship tool that community might seek, but you're using your understanding of creative problem solving and the benefits of good design in a community or in a particular audience to help that population understand how they can elevate their experience by having a greater awareness of design, and how creative problem solving applies to so many different sectors, not necessarily being an architect or being an interior designer. So I really love that. And number two is how so much of your work has supported not only some of the communities that we traditionally have an awareness that need support, but also to a variety of unsung heroes and people who may be suffering more quietly and are not as obviously. And you have been able to reach across to find those populations and give a leg up and a supporting hand. So I really applaud that. And I find your work so very, very exciting, Nancy. So I'm so glad you're here to answer the questions that we have for you today. So let's get started.
Okay.
Can you give us an idea of what your favorite project is and why?
Ooh. Well, I think many of us say this, right? Like they're all like our children, but I will say, I think for me, the relationship is equally important to the project. And by that, I mean, as I described the work for the door, the fact that we've been able to do probably a dozen projects for them and get to know them so they understand what it means to work with us, and we, more importantly, understand what they do. That to me, that's the best kind of project. So I would say with Jesby House, with the door, having those relationships, it really makes all the difference. And at the end of the day, whether the wall is pink or blue or green, we're going to add the design element, but we're going to be able to have a shorthand that says they need to do this, and we can take that and we can very quickly transform some space for them. And I think that's huge, right? I always go back to, I'm just going to tell this quick anecdote. One of my first jobs was at Brennan Beer Gorman in New York, 54th and Madison in 1990. And the office was booming, and they were so busy that they said to three of us, we don't have enough space for you. You're going to go to the 5th floor. And literally, we took our drafting tables, we put them in the elevator, we went up a floor, and we started drawing. We had old, like, black phones. There was still stuff on the floor. There was like somebody's old boots on the floor. And we drew there for 6 months, and we were doing one of the high-end hotel projects in the city. That is still, for the three of us, those two people that I worked with are still very good friends of mine. That is still one of the best experiences that any of us have ever had. And to me, it always goes back to what we do. We have a lot of skills. We have a lot of things that we have to do that are related to design and code and zoning and all that technical stuff. But it's also about sort of the energy and passion when we go at the work. So I think that's what it's about in terms of what the favorite projects are.
I love that. Great answer. How long would you say it took for you to be confident and comfortable in your role as an architect?
I'm not there yet. No, I'm almost there. I think it took, probably 2 decades at least. And I think the things that once you really start to understand, we do a fair amount of master planning and starting projects very early on with coming up with an initial concept. Once you start to master I think, understanding how to interpret the building code and understanding how to address zoning issues, as we all know in New Jersey, every town is different. It's all complicated, right?
Yes.
That's really like, putting on your legal hat so that you can keep yourself and your client out of trouble, but also helping to spearhead those efforts. It takes a long time, I think, to learn all of that. So it takes decades, in my opinion, to be competent. You get licensed maybe 5 years out of school, but to be sort of well-rounded and well-formed, I think it's a couple of decades.
I agree with you.
So,
What would you say would be your dream job or dream project in the future if you could choose?
ooh. I'm sure it would be in some building in a downtown that's been abandoned or is in a state of decay that would be sort of mixed use. It would combine housing and it would have some community component to it. It would be, have an industrial feel, would be cost sensitive and would be super cool.
I love that.
So if anyone knows of one of those, I'm available.
Well, I mean, it certainly is the quintessential solution for so many of the problems that we have in New Jersey today. So having people who desire those types of projects and are excited by those types of projects are really some of our most important designers. So I'm so glad to hear that that's your answer. When you're not working, what do you like to do with your time?
Ooh. So I like to draw. My husband is a singer, so there's a lot of jazz in our lives. So finding all sorts of cool music. You can always find cool music around here. What else do I do? I spend a lot of time just being out in the community. That's what I do.
Good for you. Tell me 3 secret special facts about Nancy.
Ooh. So one might be my first language was Italian. I moved to Italy when I was 2. Unfortunately, I don't remember any Italian at the moment, but I know it's back here somewhere deep in my brain. I lived there for 3 years. We came back to New Jersey. We moved to England when I was 7. So the second kind of interesting fact is I lived in a thatched cottage in England, a real thatched cottage. So I could pull the thatch out of my bedroom window. The toilet was in a little compartment. The sink was in my bedroom, like really old, the real deal. So I think that had a huge influence on me in terms of what I down the street from Lutchen's, the real deal Lutchen's houses and that kind of thing. So, so that would be a second fact. What would be a third fact? I love to organize sort of, I'll call them parties or events or, all of the things that go with that. So again, anybody who knows me knows I'm always up for putting things together. There's a lot of full-size mock-ups of foam core things that come out of our office and appear in different places. So sort of going back to, it's really important to have fun along the way. So
that's very exciting. I'm thinking of all the committees I could bring you in to work with me, Nancy.
Yeah, well, it's fun, right? Like that stuff is
it's true. It's true.
And it it's like shredding on a different level, right?
Right.
Yep.
Love it. Who would you say, besides your thatched house,
Yes.
what would you say were your inspirations for becoming an architect? Who or what?
Ooh. Well, my father was an engineer, so I do remember him sitting every night. He used to call it his noughts and crosses. He was a civil engineer, he went to the Naval Academy, and he would draw and be at his desk every night. I tend to be a workaholic. I guess I got that from my dad. So I would say that's one inspiration. Here's the God's honest truth about becoming an architect. I was really good at math and science, and I was also artistic. Junior year in high school, my mother sent me to, or whatever, my parents sent me to Cornell for the summer to study physics and calculus. I think the idea was that they would be college prep classes. I went to Cornell. The cool kids were the ones in the pre-architecture program. So I spent the whole summer building models and being with those kids. And that was the key to it. Before that, I was the kid with a dollhouse that I had electrified myself. I made my own shingles, all of that. So I think that's what happened. And I always go back to that. If I had not gone to Cornell that summer, and I had not been bored with the physics and calculus students, and I had not gone towards those architecture students, I don't know that I would have ended up being an architect, which is why I think it's so important to expose people to it whenever possible. And I'll just give one other quick story. My son was a lacrosse player, and so standing on the sidelines with the lacrosse parents, anybody who said to me, my kid is interested in architecture, I said, send them, I'm happy to talk to them. So there were two lacrosse kids over the course of time who came to Studio 1200 to do an internship, whether it was a week or a month or a summer. One of them came and after a few weeks was like, there is no way I'm ever going to be an architect. He's in med school now, and he's on his way to becoming a doctor. There was another one who came who absolutely loved it, and he now is a licensed architect. So, it's like exposure. It's all about exposure, right? So I feel like I was fortunate to get exposed to it, and it's really important to keep exposing our young people to what it means to be an architect.
And I also find that there's a lot of confusion and unfamiliarity in the general population about architects. So even for those people exposed who have no interest or don't plan on pursuing it, I think it improves the architect's position because we're spreading knowledge about our profession. And it also helps to inform the community on what resources they can benefit by engaging an architect. So kudos to you for the successes and the failures in those internships.
Yes.
Next up, what would you say are your inspirations for life? Who or what?
What are my inspirations for life? Well, Louis Kahn has always been sort of my architectural inspiration. I love the combination of materials and form and structure from him. So he's always been inspiring to me. I would also say sort of the details of old buildings. I'm still in awe, right? You walk around even any of these towns, you walk around in the city and really just seeing what's out there and really looking at, what came before us, to me, is just unbelievable. I just had the privilege of going to see up in Patterson with Andrew Thompson. I was able to have a quick view of the courthouse there and seeing the details of that old building, just unbelievable. And then who else has been sort of inspiring? I love Deborah Burke's message about what it means about adaptive reuse and working on structures. To me, that's all very inspiring.
I love that. What's going on in the office right now that is generating a lot of buzz?
What is going on in the office right now? We are working on the Milburn Deli. That's what's going on, amongst other things. So for anyone who's from sort of this part of New Jersey, the Milburn Deli is a big deal. So they're getting ready to do some work. So that's exciting for us. The Just Be House project is a big a big project for us at the moment. So the house that I showed you that we were just finishing, the Colgate stables, just all of these, right? There are just so many interesting projects and what it means, this fabric, there's some I can't really talk about, that just getting into these towns, what does it mean to imagine how we can continue to make these towns better? As we all know, the challenges, the land use, the historic preservation, all of those technical pieces that go with trying to get these projects off the ground are exciting, challenging, sometimes frustrating, but that's part of the journey.
Excellent. What advice do you have for recent grads who are entering our workforce?
What advice do I have? My advice is never say no. I think that there's something to be learned, certainly with people entering in, young folks entering into the profession. As we talked about earlier, getting a level of competency takes years. So no matter what somebody asks you to do it with at least 100%. 110 would be better, right? Like give it everything you've got. And it might not be the most exciting thing, but there's so many base level things that we need to learn to be architects as we go along this journey. That I remember at one firm many years ago, someone asked a young person to do something relative to zoning, and that person said, "I'm not interested in zoning." Well, that didn't seem like a good answer to me, right? You have to be interested in zoning. If you want to be an architect, you need to understand it, right? If somebody asks you to pursue it. So that would be my advice. I think I always say to people, it's not that hard to be good at what you do. You just have to show up every day, and you have to be excited by it, and you have to be willing to put in the work. You know, and that's what it takes.
Terrific. Agreed. So circling back to, you know, our topic of the day, this is a Women in Architecture program. We are bringing it to our audience from the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee, two very important committees at AIA New Jersey. You have been a member of AIA New Jersey and Newark and Suburban for many, many years. Yeah. What value would you say AIA brings to you personally, professionally, and your firm?
Sure. Yes, I've been a member for many, many years. I think having the credentials of, you know, the AIA credentials in and of itself is important. I think that, as you and I were talking, I think just before we started, the AIA has so many programs, and I feel like you can tap into whatever are the pieces that are of interest to you. There's so many committees that you can get involved in. There's so many resources. You know, we use our resources all the time from the AIA. One thing I had also mentioned is we have become our own AIA CEU provider, which has been enormously helpful for Studio 1200 as an organization. Going to the events, I think, it's, you know, great, Stacey, that you remember when we got that award so many years ago for the Park West Tavern. Participating in that, it's really important for our staff that we participate in that we go to those events, but even that we celebrate our work, whether we win an award that year or not, that we're celebrating the work, and we're sort of, you know, we're thinking about what it is that we've accomplished or, you know, we've designed in the previous year. And attending the events, right? We encourage everybody. We actually pay for all the AIA memberships in our firm and the associate memberships, and we really encourage our staff to participate because I think it's important stuff.
That's great. And while we're talking about participation, I'm going to take this opportunity to remind all of our listeners and to you, Nancy, and your firm that Architecture Week is coming up in just a few weeks. It will be celebrated April 14th through the 20th. And every one of you participating today is invited to participate either in our photography competition. We have an opportunity to submit slides of your own projects that will be circulated throughout all of our communication avenues at AIA New Jersey. And we have a K through 12 design competition, which is being sent out to teachers. And anyone on this call who has someone in school K through 12 or has a relationship with the teacher or a school district, we encourage you to grab that information and share it with them. If you have not already seen it on your email, it will be coming out again tomorrow to remind you to please engage. And Nancy, we hope to see all of the AIA members in your office submitting content to participate, because your projects really are very exciting and enlightening. So I hope you'll participate in that.
For sure. I saw do you want me to, I saw one question in the
We have two questions.
Okay.
I'm going to pull those up right now. I just needed to get my plug in because we were talking about participating.
I gotcha. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. From our immediate past president, Ron Weston, for the nonprofit clients you serve, do you do some of the scope of work as pro bono or at reduced fee rates versus private and for-profit clients? For small nonprofits, do you perform pro bono only services, use AIA pro bono agreement, or similar?
Ooh, okay. So let me see if I can hit all the questions. So we definitely, for the nonprofits, we do a combination of some of the work is given, we do pro bono. Some of it is done at reduced fees. Oftentimes we will take my time and we will do that as pro bono. So, you know, like as I was describing for the door, for a year and a half, we did weekly calls with them and other support during COVID. That was all done pro bono. Then we had to do a whole series of diagrams and other things. We did those at a reduced cost, just basically to cover the cost of our staff. So we are often doing a combination of pro bono, reduced fees, giving, the principal time at no cost, et cetera. Normally it's rolled into one of our standard agreements when we're doing that for nonprofits. And then we've done some work that's entirely pro bono, right? We did some work for one of the churches in Morristown where one of the buildings had a fire. We did all of that work at no cost. So that's the way we handle it.
Ron, I hope that answered your question. We have a comment from Ruhle, who is our state representative to the Small Firm Exchange. Ruhle shares that she finds your work very inspiring, Nancy, and appreciates that you share these wonderful projects that you've done for the community. And I completely share those comments. I am so delighted that you've been here with us today. And I wish that I worked for you or with you. This is just such an exciting career that you've had, which is great. I will invite anyone else who's on the program to enter in any questions that you might have for Nancy, or comments or suggestions for anything related to what we're talking about today. Nancy, how many people are at your firm these days?
25.
And what would you say is the split between architecture projects and interiors projects, or do most projects include both?
Great question. Most projects include both. I would say our single family residential work, we tend to do more of the architecture. We have more projects that are just architecture. And I think that has to do with the way that homeowners, they either have a decorator that they've already worked with, or they want to do it on their own. So those projects, there are more of those that are just architecture, but most of them are both.
Love that. I find my projects also mostly include both, and I really love the cohesiveness. And I think it also creates a very dynamic experience in the office when you can see, all the different talents of the firm coming together to bring their piece of the puzzle and to create a really cohesive, wonderful solution. So I'm delighted to hear that. Yeah. Terrific. Yeah. Deli Yaker, who is one of our members of the Architects League, shares that your work is very inspiring, and she's glad that you were here as a speaker today. And an anonymous attendee would like to ask how you got the courage to start your firm.
Ooh. How did I get the courage? Well, truth be told, my business partner and friend of many decades, Sandy Markwith, started the firm in 2005. At that point, I was at a different firm. I was in the process of designing the Kemmerer Library in Harding Township, which happened to be where my mother lived. And in addition to the Grace Church in Madison, which is the church I grew up in. So as these things go, you make your move when the timing is right and all the pieces come together. But Sandy and I met at Gensler many, many years ago, and it's been a fantastic partnership to be able to partner with somebody so closely and to be able to do the architecture and the interior design sort of all under one roof. So to your point, Stacey, cohesively. And I will tell you, I started out on this journey in 2008. My last day at my previous firm was Halloween of 2008. Anybody who remembers that time, that's when we slid into the recession of 2008, 9, and 10. So it's certainly an interesting time to try and build a firm, but it all worked out.
Absolutely. And I mean, over time, you have taken your firm through so many changes in our economy, changes in the politics in New Jersey, changes in, cycles of real estate development, and continued to really create things that are fresh. So I think that is a compliment to your firm and really speaks to your ability to evolve, which is such a critical element to the health and well-being of any practice. So great job.
Thank you. Got to be nimble.
Yep, that's right. Miss Sydney Nance, our participant from last month, offers congratulations on the award and to Studio 1200's continued success. What do you think AIA New Jersey can improve on, and what would you love to be a part of next?
So I've been in discussions with Elizabeth Pacheco, I think I said that correctly. So for me, I think the sustainability, what that means, again, just thinking about the projects for today, and I was having this discussion with somebody else, you know, the climate issues that are upon us, we've had people now ask us to raise, you know, figure out what it means to raise their houses, not at the shore, but in Morristown. As we all know, the water issues related to flooding and storms, we've seen all kinds of issues happen this year. So I think that you know, we're at a different phase of what it means relative to sustainability and infrastructure resilience, right? So for me, that's where my mind is headed going forward.
I love that you know, not only came up with those concerns, but also sought out the source at AIA who could be a support on that subject matter to try to move that forward. Because so often we do at AIA New Jersey, I know as a committee chair, people don't often take that extra step and communicate their suggestions or recommendations when, of course, those things are very helpful to moving forward topics such as that and bringing new content to the membership. So thank you for doing that. And Elizabeth is certainly a force in and of herself. So I look forward to seeing where that evolves as well.
Yep. Yeah, and I think we're really going to have to, I'll just say, I think we're going to really have to, as a community of designers, architects, and other professionals, you know, we're going to have to think outside the box, right? It's really, it's, you know, things are changing very quickly in terms of what it means to design and support structures as the climate changes.
Absolutely. All right. Do you have any closing remarks you would like to offer, Nancy, before we sign off?
I just want to thank the AIA, honestly. You know, it's been it's been a great honor to have been honored last year as New Jersey Architect of the Year. We have enjoyed along the road all of the resources of the AIA that they do provide for us. And I encourage everybody in whatever capacity that you can get involved, take advantage of the AIA. And at the same time, whether it's with the AIA or other nonprofit organizations, just get out there and use those skills as an architect out there in the community, because it does all sorts of things that are really, really important. So I think that's
excellent. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank everybody in the audience for tuning in today. We had a great audience, excellent questions. And we encourage everybody on here to stay in touch with AIA New Jersey with your ideas and suggestions for things that we can do moving forward. And we hope that one of you will be our next service award winner. So, or design award. We've got awards in every category. Nancy, have a wonderful day. Thank you to everyone for being a part of the program, and we wish you a good afternoon.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. Take care, everybody.